Hello, everyone, and welcome back to season 6 of The Breakthrough Show. Breakthroughs around the world, conversations with 40 guests from 40 different countries, acknowledging our similarities, honoring our differences, and celebrating our connection. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, and I'm super excited to be back with you today. I am the creator, producer, and host of the Breakthrough Show Network. And behind the scenes, there's been a big gap of time between the last episode and this one. And so I feel like I've got my training wheels back on here, but I'm excited to be back with you today. For season 6, episode 29, I'm thrilled to welcome a couple to the show. During my networking adventures, I was fortunate to meet Stuart, who contributes his heart-centered work to the personal development world. I then learned of his amazing wife, Susan, who I was immediately drawn to. You guys know I love music, and she's been a DJ for a very long time. So here to represent the country of China, please welcome Susan and Stuart to the show. Welcome to you both. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Hi, Jessica.
It's an honor. So, we're both excited to have this discussion and spread the word, as you say.
Yeah, we're waiting for today for so long.
I know. Sometimes, we'll have conversations with people and it'll be a short amount of time, but the long ones, it's almost like we have to get to know each other again, which can be fun too.
Yeah. Well, that's it, and life happens, and we had the Spring Festival here a couple of weeks back, so it's been busy.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to learn a little bit about that as well, because I always find the different traditions that we have in our countries to be so interesting. So I'm excited to talk a little bit about that today. But I love this perspective we're going to bring to our audience today, because Susan, you grew up in China, and Stuart hasn't grown up in China, but you've been there for quite some time now. So I'm excited to hear kind of both of your perspectives about the country. Let's just start off. I guess, Susan, I'll start with you. What are some of your favorite things about China?
I think the Chinese culture, just like this Spring Festival. In the past, in the ocean of China, people like to doing the fireworks during the Spring Festival. But because the disease and also because the air pollution, so the government just says stop. And now we're so surprised. This year had a big fireworks show. Everybody is so exciting. We haven't seen that so many people on the street.
Yeah.
Just like ants on the road. I mean, a lot. We haven't been seen for so many people on the street because when the city was closed, everybody was sitting in the house. Then it's empty street, and there's big difference.
Yeah, it's really nice to hear that you all are kind of getting back to normal over there, as well, because I think even here in the United States, there's been places that were quicker to get back to everyday life since COVID, than other places. But it's nice to hear that you got to have your fireworks and the festival. What is the Spring Festival all about?
People will celebrate just like you. First, you need to clean the house.
But why?
We?
Why do we celebrate? It's the Chinese New Year, the Lunar New Year.
Because in the ocean China, in the culture, 年, we say 过年, and 年 just like evil. We want the bad thing past. We want to celebrate the new things.
Yes. Okay. So it corresponds with the Chinese New Year then.
Yeah, the Chinese calendar is based on the phases of the moon, so it is the Lunar New Year, and it's at a different date every year, just like Easter is in the Western world.
Yeah, and it's the year of the rabbit this year. Do I have that correctly?
Yep.
Okay.
They're all running free, doing what rabbits do.
Yeah. I got a little bit interested in the Chinese astrology when my daughter Nina was born. She was born the year of the golden pig. I guess that's different than the year of the pig. The golden pig was supposed to be a big deal. I don't know anything about this though, but it sounded interesting to me.
Yeah, they've got the elements mixed with the animal signs. So I'm a rooster, but the element is fire, so I'm a fire rooster, which makes it different from just an ordinary rooster. So there is a more in-depth explanation of the animal signs.
I need to look that up because I'm a rooster as well. I need to look this up. But my husband's a rabbit, so he had proclaimed that this is his year. This is my year. Stuart, what are your favorite things about China? What drew you to, other than Susan, of course, but what drew you to China?
Well, I didn't know Susan when I came here. Yeah. We met actually, interestingly enough, through the school I was working at. The headmistress of the school, it was a private school, decided that she wanted to have a radio show. And I was the person delegated to take 3 young children to the studios. And Susan was the DJ who was delegated to be able to communicate with me. So that's how we actually met. And much to Susan's displeasure, I hadn't got a lesson plan. I don't work with lesson plans. And she's waiting for this lesson plan so she could translate everything. But we just did it off the cuff, and we got to know each other from there. But really what happened was, I was born in the UK, and I moved to Africa in '86. And I lived there for about 18 or 20 years. And then things started to fall apart, and change happens as it does in life. And I was offered an opportunity to come to China to teach English as a second language. And I asked the person who offered me, where is it? Is it north or south? Because if it's the north, it's too cold. I'm not going to go. But they said, no, it's the south of China, not far from Vietnam. So I said, okay, no problem. And that was in 2003. I came over here for a year, and it's now 2023. I'm still here. And of course, along the way, I met Susan, and then we got 2 wonderful children. And really, it was just an opportunity to go to Asia, because I'd first been in Africa, traveled through Africa overland, and then I stayed in South Africa for about 18 years or so. And coming to China, it was just the next step. It just seemed the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like it was a time flies when you're having fun sort of situation where all that time has gone by. Did you ever grow up thinking I'm going to live in China one day?
China wasn't even on my radar, when I was a youngster. The one thing that I had on my mind when I was a youngster was getting a motorbike. But along the way, I'd always had a deep interest in Africa. So that was the first place I was ever going to. Europe, I can go there anytime. But Africa, no, I've got to go there first. And then from there, obviously, I got to know more people. And then as life does, it takes you on these journeys.
I love that. I love that. I happy accidents. I think sometimes when life goes a different way than what we think it's going to, it turns out to be a great story. Something that feels like it was meant to be. Even Susan, what are some of your favorite foods? Because I have to. We always end up talking about food during this segment because I love lots of different types of food from different cultures. I love Chinese food, but I'm betting that the Chinese food here is not like what you have over there.
But actually, I like spicy food. And I don't know overseas people like spicy food or not.
Some do, some don't. Yeah.
And then the last week we went to Yangshuo, and then we can just have a taste. They put chicken in the bamboo, the bamboo. Yeah, they make a hole like a window that put the chicken inside and then cook in the fire. And then you can just take the soup, very nice because it's fresh. And also you can taste the fresh of the bamboo. That type of food, I like it.
Yeah. I love the spicier foods as well. Anytime that we order any sort of food from another country, I always get the one with the hot peppers next to it. So on the menu.
And also there's very famous food in Guilin. It's called Guilin noodles. And everybody come to Guilin, they will have to taste. It's very nice. And also it's very cheap. When I say cheap is when I'm in the high school, it's only 2 RMB for a Guilin noodle. 2 RMB is how much?
Well, it's about 7 RMB to $1, so it's a third of $1. So it's nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Food is very expensive here.
Some people just have noodle for a meal, so it's very cheap to live in Guilin. And then in the ocean China, if you're a girl like a boy and then they want a date, probably they just let's have a noodles. Yeah, and then that's it.
The problem with that for me is that noodles are messy food. Because they're in a soup, so you take that, they splash everywhere. So it doesn't make sense to have a date and splash the noodles everywhere or the soup everywhere. But,
it could be like the noodle scene from Lady and the Tramp, when they have the one noodle and they.
Also, and this moment is very famous. Snail noodle. I don't know whether you heard it before.
No.
It smells very
horrible,
but it tastes nice and it's spicy food. Many foreigners just try, and then when I saw many video online, the foreigner try to taste the snail noodle. When they smell it, they just say, "Oh, disgusting." But when they taste, or sometimes they just close the eye to taste, they were so surprised.
The snails are a water snail, not the land snail that they eat in France and other places. It's a water snail, but it does stink. And I've never tried it because I don't eat meat, so that's the challenge for me.
This is what I was going to ask, because so many of the different cultures that we've talked about on this show are very protective of their food. So if you were, like when I was talking to a couple of our guests from Africa, if you were to go there and they served you a meal and I was to say, well, I'm vegan and I don't, like, they would take offense and you would not be allowed back in their home. Like, how is that experience in China? Is it the same? Like, are you protective of your food and that would be an insult to you, or are you okay with someone, not eating something that you serve?
I think most Chinese people can't understand what is vegetarian food.
Yeah.
Because they think a little bit seafood is not food, it's not meat. It's just only seafood. Or they use the meat soup. They think there's no meat inside.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people, they serve it and they say, it's only got a little bit of meat and it's okay. But it's not okay.
Right.
But I think one of the things is the Chinese people are very hospitable and they go out of their way to look after you. So even though it may be difficult, because virtually everything, even the vegetables, they cook the vegetables with meat sometimes, or they put the meat soup on. They will go out of their way to try and make you comfortable. They have that part about the culture. So, sometimes it's a challenge, but I'll just eat the rice and nothing else, because you've got to show willing on your behalf. But generally, it's not a problem.
And I also think another interesting thing about Chinese food is the name, the Chinese food. When I see the menu of the overseas, they always tell you how to cook it or what's the material to cook this food. But in China, when they name the food, they don't. Something they call like couple's lamb. When you saw that name, you won't try, but it's nothing to do with that. If I translate like that directly, people are so scared.
Yeah, I would be. I'll be honest with you. I would be. And I'm the more adventurous out of my husband and I. He's very much when we go out to eat, he gets what he's always had and he sticks with that. I like to try new things. I would be discouraged to see.
Well, they eat almost anything here. So, it can be a bit challenging. Yeah. I mean, I know when I was working in South Africa, there was one of the people I was working with. He came here on a contract for 6 months. And the area he worked in, they would eat an egg with a chick that's about to hatch in it. Yeah. So there's a fully formed chick inside it. And that was a delicacy. Where we first met was a city called Nanning, which is the capital of this province. They had a famous street, barbecue street, they called Zhongshan Road. And one of the delicacies there was barbecued pig penis. And
it's famous. People love it.
Yeah, people like it. And I've been to areas where they have a rat, which is spatchcocked, which is, cut down the middle and opened out and skewers through the front legs and skewers through the back. And they cook it that way. So, I mean, there's a whole variety of different things. And another place I went to, it was actually a KTV place, and this person who was my host, he was looking after me, and he ordered a plate of black beetles. Now, you can imagine my look. And he just looked at me. Okay, well, fine. You want to miss out, you can miss out. And I thought, well, it's fine. And it's interesting the different perspectives we have. But again, you go to Australia, you go to Africa. I've been in Botswana in the market. They've got big sacks of mapani worms or caterpillars, and I've seen the people collecting the termites that come out from the mounds and then roast them over like an open fire, like a wok. And they say they're like peanuts, but I never tried. I've been on a boat in central Zaire, and there's a guy walking down with a crocodile in his hand, wrapped up and in string, but it's alive, and that's his lunch. I've seen the monkeys and that hanging off the tree, and they've been barbecued like a little baby, just like this, and that's bushmeat. So you get used to all these different things.
There's part of me that's like, yay, they're not wasting anything. And then there's another part of me that thinks, no.
Yeah, it's not for me, but if they like it, it's fine.
Yeah.
When my mother came to visit me, and I'll never forget this, we were invited to someone's house, and the guy there they had a black pot, a cast iron pot, and they make what they call a hot pot, and they put all sorts of things in. And my mother was the honored guest, and so he was looking after. So he gets his chopsticks and he goes in there fishing around. He comes out with a full chicken's head, the crop on it with the eyes and the beak and everything else, and he holds it in front of my mother's face. And my mother's like horrified. Number one is the head, and number two is his chopsticks. And she refused, obviously, as polite as she could. And he just shook his head and ate it and crunches away and spits the beak out and stuff like that. And then he goes back in again now for one of the eggs from inside the chicken.
Oh my God!
And gave to offer her. And after that, he gave up because she wasn't. But they were considered delicacies, and he was looking after her.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, that it's challenging when you've never been exposed to that type of food, shall we say, because in the West, even the fish you don't get. I mean, I can remember one of the students I had, we went on a trip, and they got this big fish, and the first thing he did was put his chopsticks and got the eye out and eat the eye. It's a delicacy, but we're not even exposed to that. We don't get the head on the fish, we don't have the tail, we just have the body. But here they have everything. Yeah. So as you said, they don't waste.
Yeah, that's when I used to live in Washington State. There's a lot of salmon there, and you could go to the river and watch the salmon run, and we would go down to where the ocean came up to the land, and people they could get in trouble for this if they were caught, but they would just take the part of the fish they wanted, and they would leave all these like they would cut it right there on in their boat and just throw the rest away. And it used to just even then, before I was plant-based, it used to just bother me so badly that it was such a wasteful experience, of just throwing whatever away down there. It was something that was challenging to witness. But I'm excited to dig into a little bit more of the culture as we get into both of your stories, and also how the transition has been for you with culture, Stuart. And I also want to talk about coming up the experience of having children there, Susan, because when we talked initially, I was blown away of the things that happen, and taking care of the mother afterwards is just so different than here. So I want to get into that as well. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back, more with Susan and Stuart coming up after this. Breakthroughs are about more than you might think. They're about discovering who you are, digging deep, reaching to the core of your soul. They're about healing yourself, understanding your beliefs, creating a ripple effect. And it's not just those initial moments that matter. It's about using them to bring more joy into our own lives and the lives of It's about having fun, letting loose, enjoying every moment life has to offer. It's about finding a safe space. It's about creating connection. Join us each and every day for exclusive programming, special events, and a community to call home, where we invite you to explore, change the way you look at and live your life, and go beyond the breakthrough. So we ask you, are you ready? We'll see you online at thebreakthroughshow.com. Welcome back to The Breakthrough Show, Season 6, Episode 29. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, back with Susan and Stuart representing the country of China today. I didn't think we would get people from China on. I tried so hard, and then, I was doing some networking, and there Stuart was, and I was fascinated with Stuart's story, but also learning about Susan. I'm just so excited to dig more into the Chinese culture as well as their stories today. I know you mentioned traveling quite a bit, Stuart, before landing in China. Did the traveling prior to going there help you in adjusting to the culture because you had experienced so many others, or was it still a big adjustment for you?
No, I mean, there's so many similarities in some ways between the Chinese culture and a lot of the African culture, especially from the poorer sections of society. The mindset is very similar. So my experiences in Africa were, it wasn't a problem for me to come and just adjust here. Mm. It just felt like another home to come to. So I was lucky in that respect. Whereas some people, they come here. I mean, there was another teacher who came here. He only lasted 2 months and then he had to leave. Wow. He couldn't adjust. And he was from Hawaii originally. So I think, I had 18 years living in Africa and 6 months overland trip through Africa, driving through Africa. So I had enough experiences to prime me, if you like, for the radically different culture.
Yeah. I know you mentioned a little bit of the story of how you both came together, how you met Susan. What was the culture transition like for both of you in your marriage together, or even in just the dating process? Like, what was it like getting to know each other? Were there things that got in the way that you had to work through, or was it pretty effortless?
I think the biggest challenge was the acceptance from Susan's family, because there is this prevalence still in many parts of China that the marriage is arranged by the parents. Right. And the girl is supposed to be married by 23, 26. If they get to 30 and they're not married, then they consider that there's something wrong with them. Wow. So that is a point that did come into things. And I think Susan did get some have some conversations with her parents about that.
What was it like for you, Susan? Was there any adjustments in getting to know any of the cultural things about Stuart?
Well, I think the most thing we talking about is you say some sweet word like "I love you," something like that, because Chinese people were so shy; they're not used to express themselves. Like "I love you," maybe I won't say it to you, but I will do something like you feel that way. So we sometimes we had a fight, and I still always say, "You never say love me. You never say that." But I can't understand. I said, "I love you, and I can help you. I do a lot of things, but I didn't say that word. Right. Doesn't mean I don't love you." Right. But one day I just saw the video online, and I saw the foreigner couple. Just a very short moment when they leave the house, like the husband or the boyfriend say bye-bye. And then the girlfriend didn't say anything about I love you or give a kiss. And they were thinking about something wrong with her. And then they close the door and they open the door and they come back again to ask about what's wrong with you. Then I know the culture. Before I can't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a good point to bring up, though. Even, even in our friendships and our work relationships, people's cultures make a huge difference on how they communicate with each other. And we are so quick, I feel like, to take offense to if someone's energy doesn't match ours, or if someone doesn't reciprocate something that we're used to. And it might not have anything to do with you, right? It might just be this is the way that they were raised.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to go in with open eyes and try and find out, because there are many, should we say, red flags in different cultures. When I was first here, before I met Susan, I was teaching at a public school, and the students were about 17, 18. They were, getting ready for university, and I met one of them in the market area. It was a girl, and the first thing she asked me is, "Have you had food yet?" And it was evening, and I thought she was asking me out on a date. I'm like, how do I respond to this? But that's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
There's that concern that you've not eaten and things like that. But I took it the wrong way.
Just like the foreigner always talks about the weather, but we always talk about the food. Just greeting.
Yeah. So I mean, it's always interesting. And the other thing that I did, which I didn't realize, because I was first taken to a restaurant when I first got in the country, and they said, don't put anything on the table because the table's not that clean. So I've got my chopsticks, and I wanted to get something, and I don't know where to put the chopsticks. I can't put them on the table. There's nowhere else for them. So I stuck them in the rice. And that is taboo. That is taboo. And I got, the guy who was with me quietly said, don't do that. Don't do that. Because that's, like an insult to the dead or something.
Are people helpful though with that stuff? Like when you do something, in that way, do they just kind of say, hey, we probably shouldn't, are they helpful, or do they get mad?
They're very, very good hosts, and they're very friendly. They actually, especially in this area, they go out of their way to help you. Maybe some of the other provinces that are a little bit more distant. I mean, I noticed that when we moved to the Fujian province area, once you knew the people, they were nice. Well, I wouldn't say nice, because nice is not the right word. They were very friendly, but they had that distance beforehand because you were a stranger, and so there was a different type of environment there. I'm not saying that people weren't nice, but there was that difference to strangers, whereas here they're more hospitable to strangers.
That's one of the things I was going to ask, if you've both traveled throughout China, and if there's big differences between the provinces, like as far as just how people behave, or, any big cultural differences that you can think of depending on where you go in China.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as the UK. There are the cultural differences. People have different habits, different mannerisms, different language. In China, there's 53 or 63 different dialects?
Yeah.
And
56.
56 different dialects of the Chinese language, and the local people all use them. So that can be a big challenge. So along with those dialects, they've got their own customs and things like that, which they still keep and adhere to. So there is a difference, in that respect. And I find that similarly to the UK, the delineation between North and South, the norther you go in China, more northern you go in China, people tend to be less openly friendly, and the southerners tend to be more friendly. Whereas in the UK, it's the opposite way around. The northern people are more friendly, but the southerners are more distant. So that is the similarity in that respect.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's for sure the same here in the States as well. So I grew up here in New England, but I just moved back from living down south for 12 years. And the interesting thing is, here up north, we're very blunt about how we present things. If we don't like something, we'll say, I don't like that. And, and just doesn't, but nobody takes offense to it. It's not considered rude because we're just saying, I don't like that. Right. In the South, you don't do that.
No.
you say, well, that's nice. And, and then you go home and talk about it. It's more sugar coated there. And they consider, we had a really hard time fitting in down South because they consider me to be rude because I say how I feel. Right. And so it's it's definitely, we've seen that throughout so many of the countries that we've talked about this season, where one part is very, maybe considered more open and honest, and other places are a little more understated, I guess, as well.
It's interesting how that's occurred around the world, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I know you guys have a couple of children, and when we talked initially, I was so just interested to learn about, afterwards you were telling me about the kind of care that the mother receives after having a baby. And how can you re-describe that for us here so that the audience can hear what that experience is like?
It's just like a nursing home after you had a baby, and then the baby is healthy, and then you leave a hospital, then you can stay there, just like a hotel. And then people look after you, serve your food. I think it's 5 meals a day, and people will just you can't have a shower after you had a baby, so somebody will help you to clean you and then wash your clothes. Yeah, just like a nurse to look after you.
Yeah, it's like a private nursing home.
Yes.
For the mother and child, not the husband, not the father. He's only allowed
you don't matter, Stuart.
Yeah, if you want to go to sleep and then you want somebody to look at the baby, also you can call them to do it, and then they will give you a lesson like to help you to recover your whole body, like you do massage, those things, or do exercise.
And also, how long of a period of time?
30 days or so.
30 days.
Wow. It's unbelievable to me because my last child, my last child, I went home in 24 hours and then then it's like, go.
You're on your own. I think it is optional. I mean, you don't have to do it, but a lot of people do it. And I think it gives more time because the mother doesn't then have to do all the housework and get involved with the chores. A lot of homes, the mother comes home with the new child. She's still got to cook and clean and do all the other things. Nobody's going to help her.
But in China, people think that 1 month, the 30 days, is very, very important for the women. If you're not to look after yourself in that 30 days properly, when you're getting older, your body is not good.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm even learning now some of the things that, no one, I don't know how it is in China, but I know here, no one really teaches you about the effects of the mother's health in regards to the child. That's really not a thing that's taught. And I'm done having babies now, but thinking back now, like, why didn't I ever know this stuff of things that I'm dealing with my children? Oh, that could have been because of whatever with my own health. And I had no idea. And so I love hearing that there is a focus on the mother's care, because I'm learning now too late how important that is.
Yes, they always say 1 week you can't have hair washed or had a shower. Yeah, and you can't touch the cold thing. You can't touch the cold water.
And the food, especially, the cold food you can't have. They got specialized food.
Yeah, that they choose a special food because some food they were stopped to producing the milk.
Right. Yeah, and that's a sad part of some of the hospitals here. Don't even have that care for the mother about breastfeeding or anything like that, and then the moms don't know what to do, and we're just expected to know. And to me, that's silly that we're just expected to know.
Silly.
And you know, when there's a woman that just had a baby, and then there's a new experience, especially feeding the baby by the chest milk. And then sometimes you don't produce or just like the baby sucking or the milk, and then they will stay inside, is hurting. Yeah. And at that moment, if you're someone who can do massage for you to help you, that helps a lot.
Yeah. It's so nice that you have that support there. And that's one of my, as I've gone through these different episodes, I've kind of said, what are the different things in the different countries that we could, I mean, it should be a world thing. It should be, help for everybody in that way. And that's something I would love to see. I want to make
the other thing that was interesting for me was the fact that when the hospital we went to for the birth was a traditional medicine hospital. And after Susan had given birth, they came regularly with like a burner, an incense burner with herbs on, and they put it on the stomach and then put a towel over it to let the herbs help her recuperate.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating for me. That would be, I would sign up for all of it. I would absolutely sign up for all of it. I want to make sure to have time to talk about the work that each of you does. Susan, I want to start with you. You're a DJ. You've been a DJ for 15 years, right? Do you love music? What sort of DJ are you? Tell me about the work that you do.
Well, I like Chinese folk music, and then also like Western music, like jazz. But sometimes it's difficult for me to remember the names, but I like it. So I just do a show. We call the name Jazz Nova.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, because in China, people not used to listen jazz. Probably they went to the bar, they listen to jazz. But it's not that very popular. But I just choose that time music just only to jazz, and people love it.
I love that. Have you listened to American radio? And if so, how does that differ from what you do?
I heard before, but not a lot.
Yeah.
But sometimes they always just share about pop music. Most of them is pop music.
Yeah. Yeah. The pop culture is a pretty big deal, I think, here in the United States. Even it's funny because we started listening to the radio when we moved back here to Connecticut, because I remembered growing up, and the one radio station was, so I used to call in to get the concert tickets and things like that growing up. And so I turned the radio on for my kids, and they play the same 12 songs over and over and over again on that station. And I said, is this how it was when I was growing up? It's horrible. It's horrible. But that's awesome. What's your favorite thing about being a DJ, Susan?
To be a DJ.
What's the favorite thing about being a DJ?
I think it's a very special experience. Actually, most the DJ, they graduate from the special school, like a broadcast.
Oh, okay.
My subject is not. My subject is journalism. But I used to be a host in the school. I had that experience. So I just do the part-time job in the university. And then I just graduated from the university and just to be a proper DJ. That's my experience. So when I first went to Fujian province, the radio station is the top 10 of radio station in China. It's very popular. And then for me, it's a good experience. But, you had a lot of pressure. Yeah. Every morning, 5:30, I need to get up. And then people will deliver the newspaper at 6:00. And then you have to very quickly to read the newspaper, and then you need to figure out which news people are interesting, and then use your language, use your word to tell people, not just reading. I think that is a challenge for me.
Yeah, because that part of the show you were doing the news broadcast.
Yes.
That was before you moved to Jazz Nova.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in Nanning, you were still doing music, weren't you?
And later, I just found out my personality. Actually, I can speak some English and then I also like some jazz. So I say, why I don't just do a different type of shows?
Yeah.
And also we do 1 minute English and people love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I was going to ask you about the news part. We had another DJ on the show a couple seasons ago. Her and her husband do a show together, and we were talking about if you feel any sense of responsibility when, say, a big news story breaks, like COVID or like a plane crash, or something that's a big deal. Do you ever feel like the weight of the responsibility to have to be the person to deliver that information?
I think because we are the person, I think we have to do. Yeah, to show.
Yeah. It's just what you have to do. You just do it.
I mean, I don't think it's ever nice reporting bad news, is it?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And also in China, people are always talking about to be a host. It is okay when you read that news, you crying or you had a tear, because they think in news host you should be very serious.
Right.
But I think everybody's a person, even the broadcast.
Yeah.
So why not? But sometimes we need to control.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times we've cried on this network. How many times I think every show has had tears of some kind. Just in talk, because we are human too. Just because we're delivering information that might be really important or breaking news or something like that, we are human and we feel things. And so we joke often about needing to buy stock in tissues on this network because we cry often.
And I had a question. I don't know whether Jessica had an experience, just like when you had an accident. When I'm doing the live show, and then the computer just crushed.
Horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah. And then there's a rule. It says if 8 seconds no sound, and people say nothing, and then this is very, very bad. You have to take a lot of money from the company.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've had this conversation. There are people that, even with podcasting and things like that, you need to watch for the dead, the dead air. But when you're doing a live show, it's really important to keep the conversation going. And there's so many people that teach now that anybody can have a show. And I have disagreed with that because not everybody is able to keep a conversation moving. That's something that's a skill. Does that come natural to you?
I think that's a very important skill.
Yeah.
Did you have to learn it, or did it just?
I haven't learned that before, but I just practice.
Yeah.
Because when you do the conversation when you're beginning to do it, you had a partner. And then you can, if you're good enough, then you can do it by your own self.
Right. Now, Stuart, you work in personal development, you do hypnotherapy, and you've done, like you've talked about, you've done the language and everything else. I want to ask you first if the moving around the world has impacted your work. Do you feel like you would be a different kind of practitioner if you had stayed in one place your whole life?
I don't even think I would have been a practitioner per se. So that's one thing. But I think that what is wonderful about all the experiences and moving around is like this lake in the background. It's that big reservoir that I can dip into at any time. And there's 100 or 1,000 or however many stories I've got. And I don't know them. I don't carry them in the front of my head all the time. But when I communicate with somebody, I'm able to just pull out the one story that is resonant for that moment for them, and then use that as a tool to help them to get past something, or to give them a bit of enlightenment or something like that. And that is one of the benefits. But I think we've all got that reservoir of wisdom if we choose to recognize it, because we've all got stories that have happened to us. We don't all have to travel around the world to do that. just being in one city the whole time and having your daily life experiences. There's thousands of stories there if you choose to notice them.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, most people don't choose to notice them.
Yeah. Well, you know, recently we had a very challenging experience as a family, and it's not even something that I've spoken about publicly yet, but it's coming. It's coming. But because there is something to learn in every situation. But
It takes time, doesn't it, sometimes to
yeah,
be ready to accept that lesson. That's the
right.
thing. You've got to get past. I mean, grieving. Most people think of the grieving process as something that happens when someone passes away.
Mm.
But it's when something in your life changes, there's a grieving
Yes.
process.
Yes.
So we've got to get past that. We've got to get through that. And we can't rush it because it's a necessary part of our healing.
Yeah.
And that's something that people need to recognize. But we try to force ourselves, and it doesn't work. But
Yeah.
at the right time, the messages will come through and the stories will be shared. And that's the important thing.
Yeah. Well, that was part of my question to you, was that, you know, even those of us who work in the personal development world, we might be aware that we have this big reservoir full of tools and tricks and things that can help us. But when everything falls apart and when we're really struggling, sometimes it can be very challenging for us in that moment to not remember that we have that reservoir, but encourage ourselves to tap into it. Do you feel like it's important to give yourself time to be in the challenging that you're facing and move through when you're ready? Or how do you sort of, when you have a client that's like, Stuart, I can't with life right now. Like, how do you encourage them to work through that, to be in it, or to move through quickly?
I don't think it's you know, it's difficult to put into words because for me, it's an instinctive thing.
Mm.
I have to work with the person where they are and with what they're experiencing at that moment. But we have to recognize, firstly, that whatever we think is wrong is not necessarily what the other person is experiencing. So we've got to go out, get out of our ego and get out of ourselves and enter into their world and then understand it from their perspective. Once we've done that, then we have a deeper rapport. We're able to communicate at different levels, and then the right message will come through. But you can't, as a coach, as a helper, you can't allow yourself to get attached to the problems that the person's got. Otherwise, that destroys you. So you've got to have a barrier, if you like, that is there to protect you, because that person's not the only person you're going to be seeing. And if you take on their problems personally and you see somebody else, you'll pass them on to that person, or you won't be as effective as you can be for that person. And for that reason, you've got to give yourself space. You've got to give yourself grace. But also, coaches need coaches. Mm. And that's something else that people don't recognize, that, you know, a coach needs a coach.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in our ego of whatever we're going through in the moment. It can be very difficult to take ourselves up here to see what's really going on, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of energy involved in coaching and working with someone at that type of level, and it can drain you. And that's another reason why it's not a good thing to have too many clients in one day. I mean, if you've got 8 clients in a day and you've got 8 1-hour sessions, that's going to destroy you over a few months.
Yeah.
You just won't have that energy. And then you're not being effective. You're not offering the help that you should be offering to the people.
Mm. A beautiful reminder for all of you coaches and healers that are watching this show to take a break and make sure you're taking care of yourself. I think it's a reminder that we all need.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't look after yourself, who can you look after? I mean, it's like that old analogy with the airplane. The plane goes into a dive and the mask fall down. The message is, put your mask on first before you try and help your children. But that's not your instinct.
Yeah, yeah.
If you don't help yourself and look after yourself, who can you help? Exactly.
A reminder that we all need, and when I say we all, I mean me in this moment.
The whole damn world.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to take a really quick break and we're going to hear my beautiful friend Dorothy Auger's poem for love, and we'll be right back to do our 10 quick fire questions with Susan and Stuart right after this. Hang tight, everybody.
I shall stand for love, even with a broken soul, even with a heavy heart. I shall stand for love, for the world is wounded, not just my little piece of land, where I am mostly safe, where I am mostly well, but our world, everywhere, every day. I shall stand for love, because we need more light, not more death, not more power, not more bombs. I shall stand for love, so that our children are safe, so that our friends are sheltered, so that our borders are open. I shall stand for love, even with a broken soul, even with a heavy heart.
Welcome back to the Breakthrough Show, Breakthroughs Around the World. That was Dorothy Auger. Please visit weshallstandforlove.world to hear more from Dorothy and her poem. So I really enjoyed having you guys on today, and I'm excited to get through these 10 questions with you. And we're just going to have some fun. Some of them are a little bit deeper, but for the most part, they're just questions for us to get to know each other. You could answer individually. One of you could answer. However, we do it is fine. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Number 1, what is your morning beverage of choice?
Mine is Chinese tea, a specific type of tea. I love the Fujian tea, the what we call rock tea or yenta, which is, they've got different varieties, but my favorites are Rogui and Tea Lohan and Shui-Jing Gray, which is golden water. They've got some beautiful names.
Love it.
So that's my beverage of choice.
What about Susan?
Water.
Water.
Hey, simple is good. Simple.
Yeah.
Good.
But you must remember that one of the traditions in China is we don't drink cold water here.
Yeah, warm water.
It's always warm, if not slightly hot.
Yeah.
Cold water is considered not good, not healthy.
Yeah. That's very interesting. All right, number 2, when are you most productive? When do you get the most done?
Morning for me. I'm a morning person. I like to get up early.
It's the same.
Same.
Mornings.
Yeah, I'm definitely a morning person, but we've had more night people on this show. They are not my people. I love them, but they're not my people. Number 3, which season is your favorite?
Me is summer. I love the summer.
Yeah.
I like spring because summer's coming. I don't like autumn so much because winter's coming. Winter, forget it.
Actually, I like winter because I want to see the snow. We haven't seen snow in here for many, many years. So I want to go to the north to see the snow in the spring festival one day.
Yeah, I love that. I love it.
I'm not interested. I've seen enough snow. I want to see the sun.
That's okay. Individual vacations are okay sometimes. All right, number 4, what is something you're learning right now?
I'm always learning about life. It's not something that ever stops, and there's a lot of awareness in that is interesting. So life and consciousness and understanding.
Yeah, I'm learning how to be a good mother. I think it's very difficult to control. Sometimes they're so naughty. It's very difficult for you to control.
Yes. I'm right with you, Susan. I don't think we ever stop learning how to be a mother, truly. I mean, even my oldest that's an adult now, I'm still learning how to be his mother. I don't think it ever stops, really.
Yeah, I think on that note, it's very important that we recognize, as both mother and father, the changes we have to go to as the children get older and step out of that.
Yeah.
I've got a 5-month-old and she's now 15 or something like that. We've got to change ourselves, but some people don't manage that.
Yeah, very true. All right, number 5, what were your best and worst subjects when you were in school?
I think the only reason my worst was French, because we had a succession of teachers, and then we had the last teacher we had as French, but we had a parents' evening. And my mother said, I've never met such an obnoxious person. And that was the only subject I failed. Every other subject was no problem, but I enjoyed metalwork and technical drawing and mathematics and physics most.
Mm.
My subject, the good one, I think, is the English. And then the worst one is history. Because we just know how to just learn how to pass the exam.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult for me to remember the name and the date.
Mm. Yeah, I was exactly the same with history. And one of my daughters she says to me every day, why do I have to do this?
I didn't even take history at that age. At 16, we had our subjects chose. We could choose our own. Mine were all technical rather than the arts related, so I didn't have that problem.
Yeah. All right, number 6. What scares you?
Heights.
Mm.
I don't like heights.
The same.
Yeah, really? I love it. All right, number 7. This might be a rhetorical question, but I'm asking it anyway. Have you ever been in love?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Different forms of love of pets, love of our children, love of each other. So yeah, definitely.
I love it. All right, number 8. What inspires you?
For me is when I'm working with people and I see them make those connections and change themselves. And that could be just the children or anything like that, and empowering them, giving them that possibility. They're only 5 and 4, so they have a lot of potential, but they don't understand it. And that's inspiring to see them make that connection.
Yeah, and recently, because I had the opportunity to pass the exam to be a university teacher. Before, I think it's very difficult, but I just passed the exam. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, number 9. How do you enjoy your downtime or your free time?
At the moment, it's all around the children.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have a bit more time, we'll go traveling. Like last weekend, we went into the countryside to see these mountains again, because we live in this beautiful area. So we go out as much as we can to those. Mm-hmm. And then for me, tea, I've got a big passion for Chinese tea. So it's very important.
Yeah.
Before I had children, I used to just listen to music and stay at home. Sometimes reading book or watching TV. And now, since I had children, I would think about, when I got time, I want to take them to go outside, like to go to the countryside, because there's so many beautiful places in Guilin.
I love that. All right, final question. Which culture do you deeply respect and or want to learn more about other than your own?
That's easy for me because I've had the experience of African cultures and Chinese cultures. So those are both there.
Yeah.
But I think I'd like to also discover more about South America and maybe some more of different Asian cultures, Thailand, Indonesia, places like that.
Yeah.
I'm the same, because Stuart in China is a foreigner, and now we had a group like foreigner family, just Chinese girl married to a foreigner. Then there were so many people from different countries, so I want to know more about them culture.
I love it. And you can always come here, Susan. We have snow, and you could come hang out, and we could play in the snow together. It'll be fun.
I'm looking forward to that.
I love it. You guys did great on the questions, and it was fun getting to know you both a little bit more and seeing what we have in common and celebrating our differences as well. I'm so thrilled that you've both been able to join us today. Is there anything in particular that you guys are excited about right now that you'd like to share, or any message you'd like to leave our audience, or anything that you'd like to leave us with today?
I always like to leave people with the understanding that we always have a choice of how we react to something, no matter what happens to us. And most people don't realize that they've got a choice. They feel helpless in the face of external incidents. But we can't control the incident, but we can control how we react to it. And that's a very important thing that I think that we should be taught at school.
And I would say, but maybe those words I never say to Stuart before. I think Stuart just like my life coach. And then when I first met before, even my parents say no, and I would just say yes, because I think I can learn a lot of things from him. He's just like my coach, and it helped me a lot, especially during the time when I had a lot of pressure in the radio station. He helped me how to pass for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, I'm so thankful that you both have joined us today, getting to know a little bit about you and also about China. And we've had so much fun virtually traveling to China today with you both. And we send both of you good wishes and your children as well. Many blessings to you both. And thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, and the feeling is reciprocal, obviously, because it's wonderful to meet great people around the world, and that's one of the beauties of the internet, isn't it? We could do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a wonderful opportunity to get to know you and your culture as well, which is great.
Thank you.
Because I've never been to the States. I've never been there.
Well, come on. Both of you will. Well, you'll have to come twice. One in the summer for Stuart, and one in the winter for Susan.
Okay.
So nice to have you both here today. Thank you all for watching or listening wherever you are in the world. We'll be back next week with another episode from another amazing country. This series has been so much fun, and I'm just thrilled to be at the helm of it with you here. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, and until next time, make every day a great day for a breakthrough, and we'll see you later. Enjoy.